In tonight's headlines, amendment to the Maritime Act gets bipartisan support. We find out what are the next steps for Belize in preparing to go to the ICJ, and the Belize Coast Guard seeks more women recruits. These stories and more on this week's edition of Belize Now. Thanks for joining us on this Friday, May 24, 2019. I am Erin Guzman. A special sitting of the House of Representatives was held on Monday, May 20th for the purpose of tabling a bill to amend the Maritime Areas Act. The purpose of the bill was to repeal a section of the act that provided a framework for negotiations between Belize and Guatemala on territorial differences regarding the maritime areas of Belize. This amendment is one of the steps being taken as Belize prepares its case to take to the International Court of Justice.
We all know that this is something we had, in fact, committed to do, and something that is necessary in terms of our taking our case to court. There were those who had wanted that we do it earlier. I don't think there's any point having any spillage of words on that issue. All I will say is that we had, again, from the international team, their written opinion that the time to amend would have been once there had been a yes vote in the referendum and before we notify the ICJ of our preparedness to proceed. So this is well within sufficient time, and I would imagine that all members of the House on both sides will have no difficulty in supporting this bill.
And the Prime Minister was right. The bill received full support from both sides of the House. Leader of the Opposition, Honorable John Briceño, reminded the House that the People's United Party made several requests of the government during the ICJ referendum campaign, including that of the Maritime Areas Act.
During the campaign, the People's United Party asked that a number of things be addressed in preparation for any settlement of this claim. One of the elements of our People's Declaration was the amendment of the Maritime Areas Act. Point 4B of the People's Declaration stated that the Maritime Areas Act be amended to claim for Belize the full extent of rights under international law. We on this side believe that the proposed amendments before us today fulfills point 4B of the People's Declaration. We are satisfied that these amendments are drafted as such that is in line with similar maritime legislation of other countries in our region like Jamaica and St. Lucia. This is but one step in the process that will lead us to the ICJ, and we start in this spirit of bipartisanship because we want the world to know that when it comes to our sovereignty and full territorial integrity, we will not be divided and we will be one nation.
The Senate met on Tuesday, May 21st, and the amendments to the Act received full support from the members. Now that Belize has gone to referendum and Belizeans have voted yes to going to the International Court of Justice, many want to know what's next. In a sit-down with Ambassador His Excellency Alexis Rosado, our Belize Now team found out what are the next steps for the jewel. On the heels of Belizeans' yes vote in the historic May 8, 2019 referendum, the Cabinet of the Government of Belize made two major announcements after its May 14, 2019 meeting. These included approval for taking the Maritime Areas Act 1992 to the National Assembly of Belize for amendment, and the appointment of former Ambassador Assad Schuman and Ambassador His Excellency Alexis Rosado as agent and co-agent for Belize at the International Court of Justice, ICJ. First, Ambassador Rosado told us about the roles of the agent and co-agent.
Well, the principal role of the agent is to be that person or persons that are the representatives of the government of Belize, of the state of Belize, with the international court when it comes to fighting the case. So the government has already identified the two of us, but it is not only a representative function, it is also a responsibility, quite an honor really, and which comes with some additional responsibilities. And that includes making sure that all our research material or documentation that is required for the purposes of the case be properly in place, well documented, well researched, fully representatives of our best position in a court of law. The next thing is also to direct the international lawyers in respect of how we approach the case.
As announced by the Prime Minister, Right Honourable Dean Barrow, the Maritime Areas Act 1992 was brought before the National Assembly on Monday, May 20th for amendment. The bill, which received bipartisan support, was passed by the Senate on Tuesday, May 21st. Ambassador Rosado explained why this step was necessary.
So the Maritime Areas Act declared our maritime entitlements under international law for the territorial seas and exclusive economic zones. But in the south, we reserved our full claim up to 3 miles, and the rest that goes up to the median line, we left it for the purposes of providing a framework for further negotiations with Guatemala. And the Maritime Areas Act specifically said that should no final settlement be reached by negotiation, then international law would apply. That is, that the entire territorial sea would be extended up to the median line.
Now that the Maritime Areas Act has been amended, what comes next?
We also have to, within a month, to write to the ICJ, formally informing them of the result of our referendum, a referendum held in accordance with the special agreement. So the result of the referendum would then allow us to submit to the jurisdiction of the court. Guatemala had done that already. So last year, after their referendum, they wrote to the court saying, we signed and ratified the special agreement. Our people have voted for it, and now we submit to the court, pending the result of Belize's referendum. So now that we have ours, we have to write as well. And that will fulfill the requirements of the special agreement.
Once the registrar of the ICJ has been notified that both countries have submitted the dispute for resolution at the court, the clock starts ticking. The process can take upwards of 5 years before a decision is made.
Then Guatemala has 1 year to submit their legal claim. After Guatemala submits their claim, Belize has 1 year to respond to Guatemala. That gives us 2 years by then, right? Once we submit our position, Guatemala then has 6 months to respond to our position, followed by 6 months for Belize to respond to Guatemala's position. So we will always have the final say when it comes to the arguments. The court will then consider whether they want to have oral hearings, or they will consider whether they've heard enough or read enough in these cases, because the original submissions will be in writing. And then we'll wait for some time for the decision.
Ambassador Rosado says that it is important that public education continues. This work will, however, continue through the International Boundaries Unit at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
I think it awakened an appetite among Belizeans to learn more about our history, because a lot of the information we were putting out there was new to most people. I hope that this experience would lead us to ensuring that the school curriculum would embrace the information and put it in there in a more formal way. It's important for Belizeans to know their history as much as possible. But history is not just about the past. History is about the now and also about the future. We are making history as we speak. So it will be important as we go along to keep the Belizean public informed at every step of the way.
Since 2007, the government contracted the services of an international law firm, Freshfields Brockus Derringer, to manage the case. 4 members of the firm, who specialize in international law, particularly cases before the ICJ, will serve as Belize's principal advocates. Additionally, the government has been researching potential candidates to serve as Belize's ad hoc judge at the ICJ. For Belize Now, I am Janelle Mencius. We'll have more stories after the break. Stay with us.
On Wednesday, May 8th, Belizeans soundly decided to take the unfounded Guatemalan claim to the International Court of Justice, the ICJ. According to the special agreement, this is what happens next. 1. By June 8, 2019, the government of Belize will submit the 2008 special agreement to the ICJ. Guatemala has already done so since their referendum was held in 2018. This will give the ICJ official authority to hear the dispute and to deliver a final binding result. The ICJ will then prepare a notice of when the trial will commence. 2. Next, Guatemala will have up to 1 year, that's 12 months, to submit their case to the ICJ. 3. Belize will then have up to 1 year, that's 12 months, to respond to Guatemala's submission. 4. From there, Guatemala will be given up to 6 months to reply to our arguments, and 5. Belize will then have up to 6 months thereafter to reply to Guatemala's response. 6. After the period of written arguments ends, the ICJ may allow additional pleadings, including oral arguments, and would set deadlines for those. 7. Once the timeline for arguments has ended, the ICJ will deliberate and make a ruling in accordance with the instructions and authorities granted to them by Belize and Guatemala, as per the 2008 special agreement. 8. After the ICJ's ruling is delivered, Belize and Guatemala will have 3 months to establish a joint commission to physically demarcate the boundaries between the two countries in accordance with the ICJ's ruling. The entire process will take no less than 4 years and can be as many as 6 years. This ICJ process will bring a final end to this long-standing Belize-Guatemala dispute. Belize and Guatemala will be able to put old divisions and antagonisms behind us and ensure that peace, development, and cooperation prevail.
The Belize Coast Guard is inviting females to send in applications to become a part of the organization. Why the interest in female recruits? Janelle Rodriguez tells us more. The Belize Coast Guard is seeking to increase gender equality by providing opportunities for both men and women alike, and is therefore targeting women for leadership positions within the organization. Coast Guard Vice Commandant Captain Elton Bennett told us what inspired the request for more women recruits.
So women bring a different perspective to our decision making, to our outlook, to the way we approach different problems, and to have a woman representation at the table in terms of operational planning gives a different perspective to problem solving. And we've discovered that over time because we've had women participation in the Coast Guard very limited, but we've realized that once we involve women in our day-to-day activities from decision making to execution, we seem to have a better product at the end of the day.
Shortlisted candidates will be invited to sit an officer selection board, which will be a 2-day exam that includes swimming and physical tests, academic exams, interviews, and practical leadership assessments. Successful candidates will be nominated to attend officer training overseas, and upon return will be commissioned and assigned to a leadership position.
Wide range of opportunities, leadership position, primarily out at sea, being in charge of operations out at sea, but they're also inclusive of office and staff positions, specialist field, but primarily the career development of the Belize Coast Guard would require you to be involved with operations at sea, at least as a start of your career.
Having over 300 males, women are greatly outnumbered within the organization, with a total of only 20 females enlisted in the BCG. Some women already in the Coast Guard told us why this is an opportunity that should be taken advantage of.
Some of the most rewarding things for me in the Coast Guard is that you have that satisfaction that you did well and that you can do better, that you can always do better, not to settle for the least, but to always continue striving for the best, continue progressing, continue being better than you were yesterday. Not competing with anybody else, but competing with your own self. And my character has changed, like in the way that I used to be very reserved, very shy, and I am now more assertive. I am not afraid to give orders. If I have to give orders, I do it.
My favorite part of being in the Belize Coast Guard is the bond that you get to share with your fellow intakes. It's forever. I've passed out since September, and I'm still close to each and every one of 79 intakes.
Well, a good experience, I would advise a female to make them come in because we only got less females there. And to encourage more females to come back, we fill up the population at this institution would be a good idea.
Applicants must be Belizeans between the age of 18 and 23, be of good character, and have a minimum of an associate's degree. Deadline for submission is May 31st, 2019. For Belize Now, I am Janelle Rodriguez.
The Red Plus Preparedness Project was launched in Belize on May 23rd. Red Plus, which stands for Reduction of Emissions from Deforestation and Degradation, involves the conservation and sustainable management of forests, but it is a response mechanism to the challenges of climate change. We found out how this project affects Belize's forests.
The Red Plus Project Readiness is a process that many years ago, many of the developing countries, together with the developed countries, got together and formed the so famous called Forest Carbon Partnership Facility. This means is to tackle climate change, especially from the forest sector perspective. That means is that we are putting together forest strategies to combat climate change, and that's why we call it reducing emissions from forest degradation, deforestation, conservation of carbon stock, sustainable management of forests, and enhancement of carbon stock. It took 10 years to negotiate this subject under the United Nations Framework Climate Change Convention. So right now we have a lot of learning experience, and that's what we are bringing here into Belize, actually preparing the country to do the strategy, the forest strategy, but aiming to combat climate change.
Countries participating in Red Plus must meet several criteria and preconditions. CEO in the Ministry of Fisheries, Forestry, the Environment and Sustainable Development, Percival Cha, said that Belize is on the right track.
We certainly believe we're on the right track, I should say. Our stakeholders who are in this room, we have the indigenous communities, we have the farmers, the various livestock associations, we have the various government agencies, meteorology, forestry, environment. We all have a little role to play, and I mentioned that in my remarks this morning, that moving forward, the important thing as a country is that all the players have to understand what their role can be in this, how they can contribute, and therefore come together in what we think it would be a coordinated manner. By the end of this project, which is next year, we will 2021. We will certainly be, we think, in the best position to be able to participate. Of importance, as you heard this morning, Belize is way ahead of other countries, and we recently embarked on this Red Plus project. So if that is any indication, then we will certainly be ready at the end of the project.
The $3.8 million project is financed by the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility and is within the scope of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement, which Belize has signed on to. Stay tuned for more stories after the break.
What if you could get a job where you can display your physical strength and unbreakable will? Or a job where you get to explore our pristine waters while protecting it? What if you could get a job where you have the opportunity to save lives, to rescue people in distress, and to be a real-life superhero? Well, the Belize Coast Guard is recruiting women with strong leadership abilities. To apply, submit a letter of application to the Commandant, Belize Coast Guard, with the following information: copy of birth certificate, proof of nationality, resume, 2 letters of recommendation, and criminal record by May 31st, 2019. Applicants must be highly motivated Belizean women between the ages of 18 and 23, with academic forte and no prior criminal record. Shortlisted applicants will undergo a 2-day officer selection board, and successful candidates will get the opportunity to travel overseas for training before being hired into a leadership position with us. The Belize Coast Guard, ready for anything.
The month of May has been dubbed Music Month by the Office of the Music Ambassador. It was a month filled with music-centered activities and will end with a music festival this weekend. Here's more.
For the past 3 years, the Office of the Music Ambassador has hosted Belize Music Week. This year, the event has expanded into Music Month, a full 5 weeks of activities promoting and celebrating Belizean artists and music. The month of activities culminates this weekend with a 3-day Belize Music Festival.
Life is about evolution and progress, and so we have been building to this point every year. Have more and more artists, and so this year I felt that it was timely to expand from just a week to a month.
The festival boasts the performances of 70 Belizean artists and 30 Belizean DJs, with genres of music such as punta, paranda, brokedown, reggae, dancehall, hip-hop, R&B, and pop.
So we have a very diverse setup, so everyone can find something that they subscribe to when it comes to the type of talent that we're showcasing.
It all takes place on Thursday, May 23rd to Saturday, May 25th at the Marion Jones Sports Complex in Belize City. The Music Ambassador encourages Belizeans to come out and support our local talents.
Yes, it's very important that we as a society collectively come together and encourage our musicians. They're ours. These musicians belong to us, and if we don't love them and cherish them and support them, who will? So I invite you all to come out starting May 23rd at the Marion Jones Stadium over 70 of our top Belizean artists, 30 of our top DJs.
For Belize Now, I am Janelle Rodriguez.
And that's it for this edition of Belize Now. If you want to provide feedback or send in your comments, please feel free to email us at info@pressoffice.gov.bz or visit our Facebook page and let us know what you think. We look forward to hearing from you. From all of us here, have a great week. Until next time.